Salut à tous et bienvenue au pays des moulins et des vélos. Vous l'avez compris, je suis aux Pays-Bas. Et je vous ai ramené avec moi dans mes valises et bien tout simplement pour vous proposer de découvrir un endroit extraordinaire. Si je vous ai ramené aux Pays-Bas, eh bien ce n'est pas uniquement pour vous montrer le magnifique site de Kindersweg où je suis aujourd'hui, qui allie donc moulins, vélos et canaux, les sites typiques eh bien, des Pays-Bas. Non, si jamais je vous ai ramené ici, eh bien c'est pour vous emmener à la rencontre de Steven Bol, un éleveur passionné de thamnophis depuis bientôt près de 40 ans. Il a une culture absolument énorme sur le sujet, voyage plusieurs fois par an aux États-Unis, au Mexique, au Canada pour aller les observer en nature. Et Steven, du coup, c'est véritablement lui qui, si je puis dire, m'a formé sur le sujet. Enfin, vous vous doutez bien que si jamais je vous ramène ici chez Steven aux Pays-Bas, eh bien c'est que j'ai décidé de ne pas rentrer non plus les mains vides. Si jamais vous voulez suivre l'aventure, eh bien n'hésitez pas à vous abonner, à activer la petite cloche. Et moi, pour ma part, comme il y a un petit peu de vent, je remonte vite sur mon vélo et on se retrouve chez Steven. Ciao à tous! Hello to you all guys, I'm with my friend Steven here. We are at your home in fact, and more especially, you know, in your snake room.
Exactly.
And so I'm so glad to be here, to be honest, because it's such a pleasure for me to be there. First, I have something to do.
All right.
And I'm sure you don't know what it is, in fact, because it's a little surprise for you.
Okay. Yeah.
I like to come with a present.
Okay.
Okay? So this is the present I have for you. So I'm sorry the package is just a little damaged, but I think that what is inside is not. So perhaps you can open it?
Okay, yes, I can. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And well, next I will explain. But in fact, this is the same polo as the one I'm wearing now.
Yes.
So perhaps you can show it on the camera.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because in fact, you know, even if you didn't do anything on the channel, you gave me the hobby. And this is because you are here, because you gave me the hobby, that in fact I discovered garter snakes, and that I love those snakes, that you made me learn many things about them, so you are part of the channel in fact. So this is why you have your own t-shirt. You know,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, so you are part of the channel now. Okay,
All right,
officially.
perfect, perfect.
So well, now Steven, let's speak about you.
Yes.
Okay, so when did your hobby about, you know, garter snakes, but also water snakes, neurodias, natrix, etc. started in fact?
I would say it started when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So
Do you remember when it was? How old were you at the time?
I think I was maybe, well, ever since I could breathe, I was interested in everything that walked and crawled.
Okay.
So in the area where I live in the Netherlands, close to the ocean, there are no snakes. But we have a lot of little canals, and I was always with my net trying to fish to catch fish, to catch salamanders, to catch frogs, and that always interested me a lot.
Okay.
So I was always catching whatever was in the rivers, and then at a certain time we have a a poster, and actually I can show it to you, I think. Because I don't have room here to put it up.
Is it the one you had at school?
Yeah.
Okay, so you had a poster.
I had a poster, yes, and on that poster it's a transcript of a canal, a Dutch canal, with salamanders, with frogs, and above it a grass snake.
Yeah, for sure, right there.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, and that was, I think that was for me my ultimate goal, what I wanted as a kid. I want to have something with a terrarium and aquarium, with fish, with frogs, and with a grass snake.
Yeah, okay, so grass snake is, in French, it's Natrix.
Yeah, couleuvre à collier.
Oh, exactly, couleuvre à collier. So you have some here today. You have some Natrix,
yeah,
I think, in your terrariums. Okay, that's so very nice. So you told me, how old were you? Approximately 6, 7?
I would say 6, 7, 8, 9,
okay.
10. Yeah.
So, and when did it start with thamnophis or garter snakes?
Well, I think, I know in probably 1982 or something like that. So I was 16 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. I had my first garter snakes.
What was it?
It was thamnophis parietalis, the red-sided garter snake.
At the time you had a lot of them in Europe because they were imported.
That was in fact the only garter snake that was available back then. And those hibernate in huge quantities in Manitoba.
Yes, for sure. And I've made a video about Manitoba, on the channel.
Okay.
So I'm going to put a link, to discover it. Yeah, so this is something amazing. You have plenty of snakes everywhere. Yeah. And at the time, some people were picking out snakes in the wild and sending them to Europe.
Yeah.
So this is the first ones you had.
Yeah. So they were the only ones available. So they could grab them at the hibernacular with this thousands and brought them all in. Of course, most of them were males. But that's how I started with 2 garter snakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when was it? You told me
1982.
1982.
Yeah. I was 16 years old.
And so the passion started at that moment.
The passion started at that moment.
Okay.
Yes.
So why, especially those snakes? Can you tell us?
Well, actually, it was not specifically garter snakes. I love snakes that live near the water.
Mm-hmm.
And then my real passion for it started in France.
I think in the south of France, isn't it?
In the south of France.
Yeah.
Yes. I never went on holidays as a kid. But only when I was around 16, 17, we went for the first time to the south of France.
In the Cevennes, to be precise?
Cevennes and Ardèche, and that I could see snakes in the wild. That really was so mesmerizing to me, and especially snakes near rivers.
Okay.
So I like semi-aquatic snakes.
Mm-hmm.
So in France, then you have couleuvre viperine and couleuvre à collier.
Yeah.
And those were the first snakes I really started with. And 1986 was the first time I was successful with snakes, because at that day there was nothing.
This is the moment when you started to breed them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So before 1986.
Yes. Before that, it was buying, and then in the end they died.
Okay.
Because it happened a lot in those days.
Yeah, I think the techniques were not as sophisticated as today.
Yes, but also it was not known how to keep them. There was only one little book about what do I keep in my terrarium.
Okay.
And there was one chapter about semi-aquatic snakes.
Yeah. So.
And they said, well, keep them in an aquarium, and you make it all wet and a little island, and that's enough. And that's exactly the wrong method.
Exactly.
For garter snakes or water snakes.
Yeah. If you want them to die, do that.
Do that. Yes.
And they will die soon. No problem.
They will die soon. Yes.
And Steven told me when I started, getting interested by garter snakes, he told me, okay, forget all what you can read in the books you can find in your country. It's true that there is a lack of information about those snakes, even today. Yes. And well, I think that at the time it was even more.
It was terrible. Yes. So my first, if we go a little bit take the historic line.
Mm-hmm.
I think my first big victory was hibernation.
Okay.
Because I think in first I collected, I'm sorry to say, some couleuvre
in the wild.
In the wild,
yeah.
Yes. And I took them from holidays, and I wanted to keep them. And it was in July, August, because when you go on holidays. So I had a nice terrarium, I had everything. I would say the general things were okay. So I fed the snakes and they were feeding well and they were very happy. And then in October they stopped feeding. And I thought, well, what's going on? Then in November they still didn't eat, so I turned on the heat more, and so to stimulate them to eat. And then
it didn't work.
It didn't work, and then in March they died from starvation. And I really thought, well, what is wrong? Why aren't they feeding? And,
so this is the moment, perhaps you started to, you know, search by yourself.
I started to search by myself, but there was not much literature. But back in the early 80s, I read one article from a Dutch guy who bred with Natrix Melga.
Okay.
And I think he wrote something about hibernation. So I started to think on how to do it, and I looked up how to hibernate snakes. So that's what I did. So I took my my viperine water snakes and I put them in a hibernation box. Outside, I was terrified all winter.
Like I think everyone who starts with snakes, you know.
Everybody who starts with snakes is terrified of hibernation. So that's what I did, and then after 3 months, I took them out of hibernation, and they were healthy, they were fit,
active,
they were happy as could be.
Yeah.
And you put them in a warm terrarium, and within 1 week they started to eat, they started to mate. It was incredible.
In fact, reproducing what happens in the wild.
Exactly. And from that moment, I am a very strong believer of hibernation. And
this is what you told me, in fact.
Yes.
And I'm a strong one too now.
Yeah.
So now, tell me, Steven, what species of garter snakes and other snakes, in fact, are you breeding actually? I know there are quite a lot, in fact.
There are quite a lot.
I don't want to have the whole list, for example, but perhaps the ones that you are proud about, you know, or the one who reproduce the most. I mean, the one who you can sell the most. Well, tell me.
Well, I breed a lot of the more popular species, but I also breed a lot of the what I call biologist species. So, for instance, if we go, you have species from Canada, you have species from the US, you have species from Mexico, and the American ones are the most famous ones. So, if we talk about the famous ones, I breed Thamnophis cirtalis consinus. So the several species of the subspecies of the eastern garter snake. So I breed Tetratenia, I breed consinus, I breed infernalis, I breed Pickeringi, of which I'm still for many years one of the few who do that, which is a pity because there's way too much demand, and I cannot breed them all by myself. So more people need to start breeding them actually, and also the flame. So several species of the eastern garter snake, and the eastern garter snake, with the subspecies, is the most famous one. Okay. Because people when they talk about garter snakes, they more or less talk about
colors.
About the eastern garter snake. Yeah. But what I like to do, and if you talk about what I keep, is I wanna keep pure subspecies. That's one. And the only way to keep pure subspecies is to know where they come from. And otherwise you could have natural hybrids, or because you cannot always distinguish it just by looking at it.
It's because the case is that if you refer, for example, with the Mexican species, they live in tiny areas. Yeah. And so it's possible just to make mistakes about that, I think, and to...
especially if you talk about Thamnophis aquis, so the Mexican garter snake, which was until 2002 there were only 3 subspecies known. Yeah. So the northern one, the megalops, the aquis and aquis vegatenuus, those 3. But in 2003, a famous herpetologist, Roger Conant, he described, I don't know exactly how many, I think 7 or 8 new subspecies. And they all live in small lakes in Mexico. Yeah. And each lake has its own specific subspecies. And they really look very distinct. Those are very big aquatic garter snakes.
We are going to show some after.
Yes.
And well, another question for you is, what are your aims doing that? Because in fact, for me, you have 2 different aspects. you are a breeder today. It means
Yeah.
that you are selling snakes.
Yes.
But you are also a hobbyist. It means that you are really interested. It's not only a question of money.
A very good question, because and we go back to the European Garter Snake Association, but I think the aim is to have several species of garter snakes available for the hobby, so maintain those subspecies in captivity, and also not to rely on snakes from the wild.
Yeah.
So not on via shops. Well, if you rely on snakes via shops in the past, well, you can only get 3 species, at most 4 species, and you never know which species because they're always mislabeled.
Yeah, okay.
So my aim is to make sure that all the species I have and the subspecies
Are the good ones.
Are the true ones, but also that we can maintain them over time. That means that for each subspecies I have, I need to have at least 2.2 or 3.3.
Yeah.
But I also need serious people who also want to breed them, because I cannot do everything by myself.
For sure.
But what I notice is that, and that's a little bit a pity, that often when I only have one and I lose my last male or female, there are often not many people I can rely on to get back the pure same subspecies. So my aim is to maintain those
and to protect them that way.
And to protect them that way, and so that people, because when I started in 1982, yeah, you could buy one garter snake, and people are not lucky, don't realize how lucky they are now if they start with this hobby, that they can choose.
Yeah,
that there are too many to choose from almost.
Yeah.
But I want to keep it like that, so that the hobby stays very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.